meron pa rin nag-observe yung contract. Okay? And then after that, like, so they need to check na yung kung may
All right, so
they need to check
um, good day, class. In continuation to our discussion, I just wanna have a little bit throwback to the previous discussion that we have here. We have the characteristic of usable hypothesis. So first, it should be conceptually clear. Second, it should be capable of being tested. It should have empirical basis, and it must be specific. Why do I say so? This is a good characteristic of a usable hypothesis. Well, first and foremost, if we says that, or if we say that it should be conceptually clear, then the hypothesis must be easily understood by the readers. Remember that readers may not always come from the same field, so remember they are not knowledgeable as you. So it is necessary that you use at least plain and simple words which have a universal meaning. So avoid using hyperluting words to avoid confusion. All right. So the variables, construct, concepts used in the formulation of the hypothesis should be operationally defined, which means that it is meaning should be in accordance to how it is used in the study. All right. And remember, you have a list already of the definition of important terms because you're already done with your review of related literature. Remember when I require you to read all the um, related review literature and to explore the topics that you want to or areas that uh, you want to check. So at least you have now your review related literature. All right. So secondly, it should be capable of being tested. Remember, a usable hypothesis should be or must be tested or testable. Okay, because that means it will have a deduction. All right, which can be established or refuted by a survey, an experiment, or an observations. So testing of the hypothesis must be done within a reasonable period of time, and testing of the hypothesis must be done within, aside from a reasonable time, within the time frame that you created. All right. So, did you know that even a well-written hypothesis can be useless if that hypothesis is not testable or cannot be tested? Or that hypothesis will require a long period of time to prove. So really time consuming. Okay. So third, it should have an empirical basis. So what do you mean by empirical basis? Now, hypothesis should have a basis or empirical evidence. It should not be formulated out of, gut feel or moral judgment. So you don't have to consider your emotions or your just when I say emotions, it's just your um hinala or your guess on this without the valid reasons or without basis, so you're just saying, oh, this is my I feel like this is what really happening when we do this, when we do that. All right. Yeah, you don't have to base on your gut feel, right? So the need to hypothesize, it may come from contradictory result or previous researchers, or it may not have been done yet, because as a researcher, your intention is, to fill the gap or to continue that study with the different sets of methods or something like that, or you have to connect that to what is currently happening that is related to that study as well. All right. So it is for the reason that prior a hypothesis e formulation, we do have an extensive review of a related literature. Well, it should have been undertaken first, right? So a good hypothesis should be able to refute, at least qualify or support an existing theory or concept in the field. And of course, last, it should be specific. Of course, self-explanatory why it must be specific. We wanted to make sure that all the operations and predictions indicated in the hypothesis must be clearly stated if it deals with what differences, relationship, or effects, right? And sometimes it is tempting to hypothesize using grand ideas because it seems to be impressive and important. right? But then again, this is a research, and you don't necessarily put a lot of information which is unnecessary. That's why we have to deduct all of those unnecessary one to make sure that we are addressing our research, all the important elements that it must be there or require every section of your research. Okay? So it is not feasible. It is better for you to what? To avoid it, no? Especially to a neophyte researcher, meaning mga baguhan, no? You are just discovering yourself and trying to understand the process. Okay, I understand where you're coming from, but of course you have to check what are the good skills that you have, or for your advantage. Okay, so these are the variable typologies. Remember yesterday we talked about this one, but I want to highlight the important one for the sake of review. So there are several types of variable depending on how they're used in hypothesis, right? We do have the independent, dependent, mediating, and moderating variables. But the question is, we don't know when to use that, or what situations or type of title that we do have a moderating and mediating variables, because obviously independent and dependent are you know um supposed to be there already, right? So in a study dealing with cause and effect relationship, the goal is to look at the extent to which one variable, meaning the hypothesized cause, influence another variable, so which is the hypothesized effect. So if we talk about the causal variable, then that means you are comparing to the two variables and you wanted to identify which, what is or how much the effect of that particular cause, no? So something like that. So if we talk about the cause, that means the independent variable, or we call it exogenous variable to be specific, or uh, we categorize that under exogenous variable. All right. So the variables which are affected or the effect, usually dahil meron tayong independent variable, kung ano yung nagiging cause niya, naapektuhan si dependent variable. Kaya ang tawag natin dyan is affected. So we call it cause and effect, right? Or if we talk about typologies, we go under to endogenous. So under siya ng endogenous variables. Halimbawa, class, no, sa in business research, no, siyempre, ang dependent variable natin sa researcher usually pertains to the sales or profit, no? Bakit? Um, because that sales or profit, it depends on fluctuations of the economy, no? So sometimes yung supply and demand, it matters, no? So that's why this is dependent variable. They are depending on the structure or the flow of the economy within a country or even internationally, no? So aside from aside from in terms of business, we do have the agricultural researches. So what do you mean by that, no? What is the dependent variable pag pinag-uusapan natin ng agriculture? Siyempre, pumapasok lagi diyan yung quality at quantity ng mga crop na na-harvest mo, no? What is the quality and quantity of your harvest, and it matters, no, of the what fertilizer. What else? The weather conditions. So, ang daming factors. So, nakarely yung quality and quantity. Kaya nga sila dependent variable. Okay? Nakadepende sila sa magiging epekto kay independent variable. So, you have to identify first which one is independent and which one is dependent. Kasi, pag alam mo na yan, then therefore, alam na natin kung sino yung affected to that. Right? Aside from in agriculture, what about in medical field? So this usually pertains to the physical well-being of a person. So, syempre lalo na ngayon, pandemic, no? So ang mental health or ang ating physical health, it matters on uh, the movement of the virus, or anong tawag diyan, the yung terminology na tinatawag natin sa virus kapag lumalakas siya. So nakadepende, no? And of course, yung alert din level, no? So our physical well-being, it matters on on aside from how the DOH handle it, but of course the fluctuation of that virus as well. Okay? So tapos na tayo sa sabihin natin sa medical field, sabihin natin dito sa ano pa ba? Social science and education. Ano kayang possible problem diyan? right? What is the dependent variable? So possibly it can consider the human behavior, no, such as self-esteem, self-disclosure, academic performance. Yan yung mga halimbawa pagdating sa social science and education, pagdating sa mga dependent variables. Ang academic performance ng mga estudyante, di ba, affected siya, depende kung paano yung dinideliver yung lessons, yan, mga subjects, or sa school itself. Yun. So, ang daming factors para maapektuhan ang ating dependent variables. So, the cause and effect relationship class can be shown in this graph. Can you take a look? So we do have the independent variables and dependent variables, right? So the figure above shows that there are two variables, which has the arrowhead point to the dependent variables. Kita nyo naman. And while at the arrow tail is the independent variable. So the hypothesis between these two variables can either be positive or negative. So for positive or inversely relationship between the variables, it will be hypothesized that if the value of the independent variable class increases, then the value of the dependent variables also increases. Otherwise, the relationship of the two variables may also be negative or related. So this will indicate that as the value of the independent variable increases, then the value of dependent variable decreases. All right, vice versa. Remember the relationship that we talk about, the different type relationship. We do have the direct and inverse relationship. So the direct relationship, it doesn't matter if the effect and the cause are both increasing and decreasing. It's okay. We can consider that as direct relationship. But we can also consider the inversely relationship if the effect is increasing while the cause is decreasing, or vice versa. So something like that, right? But of course, the formulation of the null and alternative hypothesis should follow a certain structure. Remember, when you are making a decision and analyzing all of the after you tested all the hypotheses that you have, then you find out that the null hypothesis should indicate that it's either there is no significant relationship between the independent and dependent variables, or if you wanted to put it this way, like alternative hypothesis, then therefore you should say there is a significant relationship between the independent and dependent variables. And the dependent and independent variables, you can unlock that. It depends on what dependent and independent variables within your study. All right. So to determine the sign of relationship, whether a positive or a negative, we need to look the relationship in the previous studies that we have read. Paano ba? Sa dati nating slides, no? Meron ako doon. So can you just take a look so that you can still remember what I am referring to? Okay? So this is how it looks like if the variables is directly. So nakita nyo, independent variables, dependent variables, then there's a symbol of hypothesis 1, and you consider a plus sign. So that means it is what? Direct relationship. Okay? So that means the independent variables and dependent variables is either both increasing or decreasing. So if they're inversely related, then the sign of the hypothesis is negative. So this is how the structure looks like. Okay. So we do have the independent variables and the negative sign, which is dependent variables. It means that the independent variables is increasing and the dependent variables is decreasing, or vice versa. Okay. So if you are not certain, or if you are not certain of the relationship between the variables of a previous studies, are showing conflicting results, then we may put both positive or negative signs in our hypothesis. So, sir, this is necessary ba? Kunwari, you're going to ask me, possible ba 'tong mangyari? Yes, it is. It is possible, pero hindi lagi nangyayari, no? But all you have to remember, class, that this conflict happen is not within your study. It is the conflict, no? Doon sa mga related review literature na meron ka. So the reason why you put the positive and negative here because you are uncertain. Ibig sabihin, hindi ka pa sure. You are about to test on this because there is a conflict on the previous study that haven't proven it yet. And that's your purpose, no? Why you wanted to put that symbol, just to give an emphasis to your audience that you need to test this because there were conflicts previous in the previous studies. All right. So to illustrate, for example, you planted a mungo seed. So I'm giving you a situation now. So you have to tell me which one is dependent and independent variables, or if possibly if there is a mediating variables. All right. So for example, you planted the mungo seeds on two cans, hoping that it will grow in 2 weeks' time. So what if the plant can answer, or what if the plant uh, was left outside of the house under direct sunlight, and the other one was brought inside the house beside the window. Okay, so here's what happened. You forgot to water the newly planted can of mungo seeds outside of the house. The one inside the house was watered well. So after 2 weeks, the seed left outside of the house grew but weathered. No? Pag sinabi nating weathered, like lanta, no? Tumubo nga pero parang lanta naman. The one left inside the house grew well. Okay? So, in that particular situations, no, just to make it clear, no, nagko-compare ka ng dalawang situations. Yung munggo na nilagay mo sa labas pero under the direct sunlight, yung isa namang kanang munggo nilagay mo sa may bintana, no, malapit sa gilid ng bintana, no. At nakakalimutan mong diligan yung sa labas na tinanim mo na munggo, no. And sa loob naman lagi mong tinatanim. Lagi mong dinidiligan. All right? Then after 2 weeks, no, yung isa tumubo na well sa loob ng bahay, no, yung sa may bintana banda. And the other one class tumubo nga pero withered naman. Mukhang lanta, no? Kulang sa aruga. So now, after 2 weeks, you have the result already. So now, what could have caused the mungo plant outside the house to wither? And what caused the mungo seed inside the house to grow? Which of this can be considered as independent variables? So you see the point, there's something lacking, no? Nasa labas na nga siya, which is parang advantage, no? Kasi naarawan and, 'di ba? Although it's not on direct sunlight. So what would be the possible cause? Can you please tell me? Mm-hmm. So I validated all your answer already, though. So you commented all your answer. You also uh, post that in our Google Classroom. So just to answer the question, class, no, in the above stated situation, the presence or absence of the direct sunlight and the amount of water that the newly planted mungo seed got may have caused the growth of withering of the plant. Okay? Kasi wala siya sa araw eh, sa under siya ng direct sunlight and nakakalimutan mong diligan. So possibly, hindi possibly, yun talaga yung reason, no? Kung bakit tumubo siya na parang lanta, hindi healthy. This may be considered as the what? Dependent or independent? Very good. It's independent variables. Okay? Thus, it is possible to have more than one independent variable. Okay? So, the growth of the mungo seed may be considered as the dependent variable. Kasi nakadepende talaga yung ano class, yung munggo, no? Kung paano siya tutubo. Kaya nga siya dependent variable. Nakadepende siya kay independent. Kung ano yung nagiging cause ni independent variable, yun ang magiging reaction ni dependent variable. Eh dahil nga yung independent natin dito, yung absent ng sunlight at ng water, so naapektuhan yung pagtubo ni munggo. Kaya siya dependent variable. Okay? So a hypothesis may involve more than two variables. We do have the exogenous variables, di ba na-explain ko na, which under, kasi we have different types of variables, but we have to categorize those accordingly. So lahat, di ba, ng mga independent nasa exogenous, di ba? So remember that. The exogenous variables class may not directly affect the endogenous variable, which is the dependent variable, so do not confuse. Rather, it needs a third variable. So the mediating or tinatawag natin diyang intervening variable, sa gabal ba or pumapagitna. Okay? So to determine the indirect effect of one variable to the other hand, in other words, the exogenous variable affects the mediating variable, which in turn affects the endogenous variables. Okay, to make it clear, I'll give you an example or sabihin natin figure para makita nyo yung flow. So this is how it looks like when we talk about hypothesis, which is involving a mediating variable. Remember, when you're making your conceptual framework, it's all about your hypothesis, right? So a hypothesis may involve more than two variables. So we do have the exogenous variables may not directly affect the endogenous variables. Rather, it needs a third variable. So we call it mediating or intervening variable. So to determine the indirect or effect of one variable to the other hand, this is how it looks like. So we do have the independent variables, then the arrowhead, kung saan fa-flow, no? So sa independent variable, pumunta ka mediating variables, but this mediating variables also has an effect to dependent variable. All right? So this consider the, for example, okay, the organizational climate in a company. For example, the better the relationship among the administration and the employees, the better will their work performance be. So if you try to look at this situation, it can be represented in the following manner. So you can see the organizational variable as our independent variable. Okay? Kasi nakadepende talaga sa organization kung meron silang project, hindi project, yung parang for the development. Paano ba? Kunwari sa school, no? Ang magiging motivating factor ng isang teacher para maging develop siya, muatin ba siya ng training? O, what I'm trying to say is program. Sabihin natin ganyan, program. Halimbawa, meron bang programa para sa mga teacher for their development? Meron bang criteria for their, when it comes to salary? So yung work performance dyan, no, nakadepende kung ano ang program ng isang organizational or organizations, no? It's either sa employees, yan, sa mga tauhan niya. So it doesn't matter kung anong klaseng organization yan, no? Or institution, school ba to? Or sabihin natin nga sa business, no? Or corporate. But do you wonder if my organizational climate would like directly improve the work performance of the employees? Or should the employees be satisfied first before they will perform better on their job? So this is a questions, no? A questions of, intelligent guess. Ano bang pwedeng mangyari dyan? Mag-i-improve ba ang performance ng isang empleyado kung kung may nakikita siyang magandang benefits para sa kanya, right? So if this is a situation, then it could be represented the manner of job satisfaction, right? So we can have or we can consider that there is a mediating variables, no? Kasi alam natin yung organizational, kung ano yung climate niyan sa organizational climate. Etong papagitna dyan is, ang mediating dyan is the question of satisfaction. So pwede nating ilagay as mediating variable is the job satisfaction. Okay? May organizational climate na tayo. Ang magiging sagabal dyan or parang mediating variables to perform the employees is the job satisfaction. Okay, sir, bakit po naging mediating ang job satisfaction? Kasi makakaapekto nga siya, okay, for both sides. Okay, bakit po both sides? Affected yung organizational and affected yung work performance. Okay? Diyan sa job satisfaction na yan. Bakit? Kapag hindi na satisfied si employee, ano mangyayari sa organization? 'Di ba? Mawawala or possible kasi manpower 'to eh, 'di ba? So kapag hindi na satisfied ang mga empleyado, then what will happen to the organization? Kaya may pumagitna tayong job satisfaction which is our mediating variable. So now let's proceed. Klaro naman 'yan. The third variable may not intervene with the exogenous and endogenous variables, right? But rather, it will either enhance or worse, ma-retard the nature ng independent variable mo. So, to enhance or retard the nature and strength of its effect, then this is referred as the moderating variable. So, pwede siya maging gasolina class, no? Para sa ating independent variables at sa dependent variable. So, tingnan natin kung itong mediating variable na ito is makakaapekto talaga, no? So itetest natin yung sa independent and dependent variables. But you have an intelligent guess already that this job satisfaction could be the cause or could be the possibly uh, a hindrance, no? So to illustrate, in the workplace, halimbawa yung stress will always affect the performance of an employee, di ba? Common yan. But his coping mechanism can either enhance or retard the effect, tama? On the other hand, no, if a person can cope well with all the stressful situations around him or her, then it is expected that the effect of stress will be minimized, tama? So on the other hand, if the um, paano ba i-explain yon? On the other hand, if the person could or cannot cope up, no, well with the working situation, then it is expected that the effect of stress on work performance will increase. So importante talaga na merong program ang isang organization during kahit sabihin natin example natin yung current situations na we do have a pandemic, no? Stress and anxiety, fear na mawalan ng trabaho ang mga tao ngayon. So ano ang program ng institutions or ng organization na tinatrabahuhan nila? Paano natin ma-address yung concern na yon, 'di ba? Where in fact, bago lang yung problem, right? So this is a necessity, no? Sabihin natin sobrang importante, urgent, no? So, in that particular aspect, it is expected that the effect of the stress on work performance will increase kasi walang nakaka-cope up, 'di ba, class? Sabihin natin kung madali ang empleyado maka-cope up sa stress, then therefore, wala masyadong burden sa side ng isang organization. But of course, ang pinag-uusapan natin dito hindi nakaka-cope up lahat, no? With that particular situations. So therefore, the expected there is the work performance, no, of the I mean, this is expected that the effect of the stress on work performance will increase some more or leading to a poor performance kapag hindi sila nakapag-cope up doon sa stress na yon. Okay? So, we do have the moderating variables in the hypothesis. So, kindly take a look on that. Ito naman yung example natin, no, sa stress, yan, which is the independent variable, no? So, yung work performance naka-rely sa pa coping up mechanism or sabihin natin yung paano nila i-handle yung stress na yan. So we call it like e-moderating variable. That's another one. No? So kung mabilis o mabagal, nakasalala yan sa coping mechanism. You know what? A lot of people now, if you take a look on social media, no, even celebrity also experiencing this one, and they have a coping mechanism or they have they're finding ways in order to what to address the problems and to be better. Sabi nila seeking help from professional, it doesn't mean you are insane or there's something wrong with you. It's just you need a consult from the professional, right? So distinction between mediating, para hindi tayo malito, and moderating variables class may be confusing at times, right? I I I understand where you're coming from, no? That's why I'm explaining something in a simplest way so that we can easily understand the process. But the use of this variables class in hypothesis cannot be evaded, no? Hindi natin maiiwasan yan talaga because it talks about realities of life, no? And research is not a fantasy. It really happens. So that's why I ask you to have your title kung ano yung kailangan natin, no? So last year, puro pandemic yung nakita namin on for sure some teacher are really aware of it kahit hindi pa nila aralin yung research nyo pag sinabi mong ah, COVID-19 yung issue mo, nako, alam na nila yan. Pasikot-sikot. So it's better that you have to come up with something new, something relevant. It's not about more on the origin of this virus, but the effect of what's really happening. It's either on the economy or yourself, no? So about realities ang pinag-uusapan natin dito. So a helpful way to easily detect immoderating variables is to ask the question, is the exogenous variables, is it affecting to another variable B? So if the answer is yes, then The B could be an endogenous or mediating variable. So if the answer is no, then the letter B could be the moderating variable. So something like that. Now, I know it's really hard at first, but you have to remember that when you understand the process and knowing which one is the independent and dependent variables, then you can begin of questioning yourself which one is uh, mediating variables or moderating variables in there. All right. So for tomorrow class, we will do have a lot of examples so that you can easily determine the function of the variables before we move to our next topic. All right. So you do have a question. All right. If not, let us pray. Let me take. All right, let me lead the prayer. All right. So let's close our eyes and feel the presence of the Lord. Lord, thank you for this day, for giving us an opportunity to attend our online classes. Give us guidance and wisdom in order to accomplish whatever we need to accomplish. And give us immunity, protection against diseases, protect our family, loved ones, and our teacher too. This is all we ask in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. So bye bye for now. Yeah, bye bye.